Joining me now in the studio is Paul Musgrave. He's an associate professor of government at Georgetown University in Qatar. Good to have you back with us. So, Paul, are we basically seeing Iran toughen its negotiating position as it feels perhaps its leverage is growing?
I think that that's probably an accurate assessment. One thing to bear in mind is that this most recent statement has come from a different power center in Tehran compared to the foreign ministry, which has been negotiating between Muscat and Tehran. What we're seeing now is more statements coming from the IRGC, more hardline and security elements.
But we even heard now from the president of Iran. So in the last, 24 hours, we've heard from the foreign minister, the president, the head of the Supreme National Security Council too. They all seem to be toughening their position, and they seem to be on the same page on that, don't they?
Well, I think that they're toughening their position, but I think that if you look at what Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and President Pezeshkian are saying, they're saying that this is the time to move toward diplomacy, whereas the IRGC-linked news agencies, and of course the Supreme National Security Council, they are saying, these are our demands. These are what we want. Well, everybody knows that you go into negotiations with a clear sense of what your red lines are, but you want to have some sense of what that final outcome is going to look like. And that doesn't include poison pills or red lines that the other side cannot agree to. Now, I think that this is rational on the part of the hardliners. I think that they recognize that they have a unique window here to press for maximal advantage. And I think that they are under no urgency, given their relatively domestic freedom, to make sure that they are pushing the United States as hard as they can push at a time when the Trump administration...
Paul, the latest line from Pezeshkian himself was, that side of the body politic in Iran is saying there'll be no talks with the US as long as it violates their interim deal. Is there really much daylight between that line and the line we've heard from the IRGC?
What he's saying is no talks with the United States, but messages are being exchanged. And that, I think, is where everything goes through. We've known all along that much of what counts as negotiations are going through mediators, that the mediators continue to be active. What the IRGC statement, the Supreme National Security Council statement said was that the Muscat-Oman talks, the Muscat-Tehran talks would not lead to a reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, that there would be subsequent negotiations. That is a new hurdle publicly. I also think that that is something that really shows that the United States is going to be made to suffer, even if just to wait for an agreement for quite some time. And I think that that is actually quite significant in terms of where we were compared to last week, where, to use the slang, the vibes were a little bit better coming out of those talks.
Do you think Iran at this point sees more benefit in letting this situation drag out a little bit longer as we get closer to midterms? Do you think they're seeing that they'll get more pain, at the very least, on the American side?
I think at this point that inflicting pain on the United States by dragging the situation out, by making President Trump flounder, inflicting pain on U.S. partners and allies is really something that is to Iran's benefit. Time is not something that works in negotiations the way it works for normal people. You don't want to rush in negotiations. If you're making the other side suffer and that's to your benefit, you're going to let these play out.
All right, a final one. Can most of these, what we've heard in the last 24 hours in terms of demands from Iran, can it be worked out? Most of the stuff is already in the MOU. If it's just a matter of sequencing, maybe even the reparations could be worked out in the form of asset releases?
Well, I think that the original MOU, that we didn't really get a chance to get into it, had that reparations, had that present in the $300 billion reconstruction fund, which was always something that raised eyebrows. Over time, you can work a lot of things out. This is the anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki. Today, the United States and Japan are among the closest allies on Earth. But in the next few months, things are going to be difficult. And even if in the long run things will turn out okay, we have to live in the short run day by day.
Let's hope it doesn't get resolved with any use of atomic or nuclear weapons. Thank you very much, Paul Musgrave, Associate Professor of Government, Georgetown University here in Qatar.